8,934 polling units.
The chairman emphasized the need for collaboration with security agencies, which is why this meeting with Nigeria Air Force is very important.
Given the size and distance of some constituencies, we seek the support of the Nigerian Air Force to expeditiously deliver materials to 3 locations in the northeast, southeast, and the southwest geopolitical zones of the country.
Air Marshal Abubakar is a fellow.
On his part, the Chief of Air Staff appreciated the visit and commended the activities of the Commission. The Air Force Chief says democracy is crucial, which is why they are committed to ensuring a hitch-free election.
The relationship has been anchored on our shared objectives, which are geared towards ensuring that good governance, stability, and rule of law are entrenched throughout our dear country. We therefore see this visit as a commitment by the Commission to ensuring that the bonds between the two organizations are further strengthened.
The Independent National Electoral Commission and the Nigerian Air Force have stated that collaboration and synergy is key in achieving success in the upcoming Saturday election. And the Nigerian Air Force says it is committed to keeping its end of the bargain by protecting and securing election materials, officials, and the electorate. Uloma Oyemachi, TVC News, Abuja.
Well, indeed, elections in Nigeria are a multi-stakeholder responsibility. Now looking at this collaboration between the electoral umpire INEC and the Nigerian Air Force. We've also seen collaborations between INEC and the Central Bank of Nigeria for the safekeeping of our sensitive election materials and also distributions across areas where elections will be held. Well, joining me now live in the studio is TVC News Chief Political Correspondent and Abuja Bureau Chief to talk about these elections happening across senatorial districts, federal constituencies, and state constituencies in the country. Ayodele Ozungbaku, welcome.
It's a pleasure. Femi.
Yes, well, there's no particular time now for elections in Nigeria. It appears we're having elections year in, year out because of how the whole electoral calendar has been distorted with all of these by-election and court-ordered rerun election. What does this imply for Nigeria's democracy?
It's not going to be easy for the Independent National Electoral Commission after just some few months of conducting a general election. You know how cumbersome that is. Now, as a result of that, we had litigations, over 1,191 litigations
arising from
2020 general election.
Is that the highest we've had so far?
No, it's not the highest we've had so far, but it's worrisome when we had to have over 1,000 people dissatisfied with the process. Now, some actually were not as a result of court order. Some were actually, people that took up responsibilities. Let's talk about the Surulere 1 federal constituency. That's Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, a 5-time member of the House of Representatives that actually went to become the chief of staff to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So it has to be filled. Some people died. And along the line, some state house of assemblies, matter rising from this post-election litigation. So that's why we found ourselves here today. But when you look at it historically, today's exercise is just a kind of exercise that a lot of people are might be indifferent about. Coming from the reports we've been getting from, all across 26 states so far. It is not a kind of election that will be keenly contested. People are tired. People, there's this laid-back tendency. Something happened in 2020 in Lagos East Senatorial District when we had 1,261,673 registered voters. And a by-election was actually held. And out of 1 million voters, 104,000 people actually turned up for that by-election. And if you look at the statistics of by-election, you will know that, look, it's not an election that is always keenly contested. As we see dominance of the status quo, maybe the ruling party, like this Lagos federal constituency now. I tried to check out the number of parties that are actually involved in that election, and I discovered that the ruling party, the way they've done their things and everything, that at the end of the day, they had the kind of power of incumbency, but not in any way to downplay the effect of this election across the country. But it's worrisome that just less than a year after a presidential and governorship general election, that we found ourselves doing this staggered rerun.
Ayo, looking at this rerun, especially the court-ordered rerun now, what does this say about the competence, capacity, and indeed the credibility of the electoral umpire? Because it appears as if the contestants were not satisfied with INEC's performance. That's why they went to court, and now we are seeing the court upturning some of the elections and ordering reruns.
This is another litmus test for the electoral umpire. People want to see, people want to see a kind of improvement and reduction in, the gifts we had in 2023 election. That's in terms of administrative-wise, in terms of technical, in terms of logistics, that actually, almost marred the, smooth performance of the 2023 election. That means that this is shorter. We just have it in like, what do you call it? 80 out of the 774 local governments. And we just have less than 4 million people, or 4 million people, so to say, 4 million people involved. Now, those 4 million people involved, when you look at the statistics of the number of those that actually have their PVC, 4.6 million people. So at the end of the day, Femi, I can tell you that the people that will be involved in today's by-election might not just be up to 3 million people. And it's going to be high by giving it 3 million out of 4.6 million people that actually got their PVC.
The fact is that it still costs money, taxpayers' money, used to conduct
mobilization,
year out.
Yes, because INEC, they don't have the wherewithal across the country. Ad hoc staff will have to be trained, they'll be paid, they are going to be mobilized. INEC, they don't have the capacity that across the 36 states, that their staff alone will be able to handle just 26 states. It's not possible. So they are going to bring ballot papers, and at a point in time, I don't know, maybe a ballot papers is printed within the shore of this country. So that shows you the expenses that we have to go into this kind of exercise.
Well, with the kind of partnership now they are having with the CBN and indeed the Air Force, we are expecting that, all of this will begin to reduce the cost of conducting election. That's on the part of INEC. Because for the Air Force also to provide logistics, it will also cost money on their part.
That's what it will cost Nigeria.
It will cost Nigerians money.
From our pockets. We ran one of the most expensive elections in the history of our country in 2023.
Well, I hold your thought. Abimbola Agbebi is joining us right now from Lagos. Hi, Bimbo. Good morning. Bimbo, can you hear me?
Good morning. Loud and clear.
All right, good. How are you? Just tell us, where are you? What's your location? Where in Lagos?
Yes, I'm presently at polling unit 23, Ward 009 on Eric Moore in the Ikmori area of Surulere.
All right, there. So tell us what's going on there. Has been the conduct of the election so far, the turnout of voters, the performance of the electoral officers, and all of that. Put it into perspective and let's get going.
All right, the exercise kicked off at exactly 8:30 a.m. at most of the polling units I visited this morning, and the process has been adjudged as peaceful and smooth. However, there's a low turnout of voters at most of the polling units I visited this morning. Don't forget that the Independent National Electoral Commission has said that no fewer than 121,111 voters, representing 86.3% of 140,377 registered voters, are being expected, or were expected, or are still being expected, because the exercise is still on at this election. But then, if you look at what we are seeing on the field, this is a complete departure from what we have seen so far at most of the polling units I visited this morning, when you compare this data with what we have seen at most of the polling units we visited this morning. And many have attributed this to past experiences recorded, at the last election, where violence reportedly broke out at some polling units, in Surulere. Some have also said that it is as a result of poor voter education. We also I overheard some of the residents of Surulere here saying that There's a meeting going on by Community Development Association in some of the houses in this area, and I begin to wonder, why would people hold meetings when they're expected to be out, to exercise their franchise? That was what we heard. But one thing that I have seen at most of the polling units I've visited this morning is there is low voter turnout. Yes, when you talk about security presence of...
Even looking behind you, just looking behind you, we can also see, the electoral officers sitting idle, a clear indication of apathy, you may want to call it, or the low voter turnout.
Yes.
But it's almost midday and voting is expected to close at 2 p.m. Do you see a situation where there might be a rush and people will come out, line up to vote before voting will officially close at 2 p.m.? Do you envisage that?
All right, so of course, at some of the polling units I visited, I've heard some of the party agents, because of course we've actually been talking to party agents. We did not have voters to talk to. We only had one or two voters, who were willing to speak to us, as we do not have so many of them out, to vote. And a lot of people have expressed, high optimism that people will still come out to vote. But from what we have seen so far, just like you rightly mentioned behind me, we have just one voter there voting. And then so far, this is what we have seen at most of the polling units we have visited. We have seen INEC officials just sitting, waiting for voters to come out, where at some other places you have just 2-3 voters. We do not have queues this year. We understand this is a by-election, but then I want to believe every election is an election, and one would expect that people would troop out, in large numbers to exercise their franchise. But from what we have seen so far, we do not have queues at most of the polling units we visited. Rather, what we are seeing are a few persons coming in to exercise their franchise. Like you said, it may be too early in the day to conclude that people will not come out. And one interesting thing that I've also seen during this election is we've seen people come out to act as town criers, calling out to people to come out and vote. I mean, this is what people have decided to do, to mobilize people to come out and vote. You see women, coming out of their houses, who are volunteers, calling out people to come out and exercise their franchise. I mean, that was an interesting sight to see. But so far, it's been calm in Surulere, and at most of the polling units we've visited, we've not experienced any rancor. Earlier, we had the opportunity to speak with the Assistant Commissioner of Police, talking about Mr. Gabriel Folorusho, who was also here to monitor the exercise, and he also adjudged the process has been smooth so far and peaceful. But so far, voter turnout is low at most of the polling units we visited. We hope to see more people come out as the clock ticks to, 2 p.m.
Okay, Bimbo, you said so far it's been calm in Surulere. Is that because Surulere is one of the flashpoints when it comes to elections in Nigeria, especially in Lagos State? One of those volatile areas where we usually record violence and some other kind of malpractices during election. Is that why you said so far it's been calm?
Yes, because if you recall, in the last election, we had pockets of violence, breakout in some flashpoint, like I said, in some places in Surulere, and some people were actually expecting to see that happen today. But from what we have seen, contrary to what we experienced last time, we have seen a calm and peaceful atmosphere so far. Of course, aside from the fact that people are not out like we expected, the atmosphere is calm, the environment is peaceful. We've not recorded cases of violence or rancor at the places we visited.
Okay, how early did the electoral officers arrive at the polling units? And what's the security situation around, apart from those policemen we see at the polling units who are not armed? What's the general situation around Surulere? How are security agencies keeping the peace there?
Yes, unlike what we had in the past election, where we see late arrival of election materials, INEC, ad hoc officials were right on time. A lot of them got to their various polling units 8:05, 8:10, 8:15 a.m. But then the exercise did not kick off until 8:30, talking about having voters come in to vote. And in terms of security presence at most of the places we visited, coming into Surulere, like you know it, there's restriction of movement within this locality where the election is taking place, and then we have security officials at different points trying to ensure that people comply. But then I can tell you one interesting thing I saw earlier today is we had commercial buses who were still going about their normal businesses. Of course, some other people within Surulere area going about their normal businesses regardless of this no restriction of movement order. Yes, so talking about security presence, security officials on the ground, I said earlier that the Assistant Commissioner of Police was here to monitor, the process, and he, of course, said it's been smooth and peaceful so far. Femi.
Yeah, we can see security officers just chatting there, having a good time, no much work on their plate to do. But well, Bimbo, you said it appears motorists defied the order by the police restricting vehicular movement across Surulere. How is that impacting on the whole electoral process? Or is it just isolated from what is going on at the polling units?
Okay, so many have termed this as being residents of the area being nonchalant, about what is going on. I mean, this is an election, and you would expect that people would want to come out and exercise their franchise. And then when you see commercial, bus drivers going about their normal businesses, a few shops opened, for business and all of that, you begin to wonder that why would people, want to flout this order when they're expected to come out and exercise their franchise. Of course, we should be able, this of course will have an impact on the outcome of the election. Yes, they are expected to come out and vote, but then they are going about their normal businesses. Of course, we can attribute this to the fact that a lot of them have decided to just stand aloof while the exercise goes on. So we wait to see what the outcome will be. We still have about an hour or two before the close of this exercise, so we hope that people will come out to, exercise their franchise, Femi.
All right, thanks, Bimbo Agbebi. Brilliant reporting as always. Well, coming back to the studio, we now have joining us Eze Nwagu. He is the chairman, Partners for Electoral Reforms, one of those prominent civil organizations involved in the advocacy for electoral reforms. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and welcome. Yeah, earlier on, Ayo and I were talking about, the whole by-election and court-ordered rerun election happening across the country. But indeed, this is another test for INEC. And you have followed the process, the build-up to this day, the D-Day now, when people are out there to vote. How has INEC's preparation been compared to the off-cycle election and the general election? How do they do in the preparation for these particular by and rerun?
Well, I've always tried to shift this conversation from what is INEC doing. And the reason for that is that it's always better to place on the table that election is a multi-stakeholder engagement, and that the activity of each of these stakeholders have positive or negative impacts on the outcome. Now, yes, I understand that INEC sits at the topmost pyramid of election stakeholdership. But truth be told, what it has to do is already done. As at today now, it has come to the culmination of its work. Indeed. In terms of, first and foremost, releasing the timetable, the conduct of the election, the collection of PVCs, and if you followed all of these processes, there has been media engagement telling us the number of people. That is where we are able to get that about 4,200,000 people are going to be involved in this process in 26 states. Meaning that the way you prepare for one polling booth is the way you prepare for 200, for 100. Because if there is a consequence in any of those polling units, it impacts on all this. So for me, it's not a test for INEC. Indeed. It is a test for the different stakeholders whose contributions.
That's security, the CBN.
No, the CBN has no warehouses. It's simply warehouses. Warehouses the sensitive materials. Now, by now, CBN has concluded this work. By simply warehousing those sensitive materials, the political parties are to escort INEC officials to CBN to retrieve these materials from where it is then taken to the different rack centers, registration area centers, where they are then pushed out to the different polling units. But this will not happen by the nature of our own environment, except the security agents provide the enabling condition. One, they have to, unfortunately for us, escort these materials, guide the materials, and then maintain law and order in the precincts where the election.
Is that so much for them to do?
No, incidentally, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. But as it is, we make a fetish of even simple, everyday things that we should. Because of the political economy of it, we then have to make it look like it's out of. In some places, for instance, we are hearing the police asking for 145 million. In Kaduna State to secure election, and then you are wondering what does it need, and you say, I want to service armored carriers that have broken down. So you would wait for election to service your broken armored carrier.
Probably this is the best time they get attention from.
No, it doesn't. No, this is not the best time. We are living in a period in which there is insecurity. Most of all those things could even be that those armored carriers are serviced. It's just probably because there's election. So the point for me is that in looking at what we're going to be seeing today, INEC is not on trial because his work really is to provide those things for the voters to come and vote. If we all behave ourselves, we wouldn't need to be putting on analysis center for, a process that should ordinarily be seamless. Go and vote, we count the votes, and then everyone. But because of the nature of our politics, which is really, as it is now, something that we need to look at, it's fiercely competitive. And I was listening to you and Ayo talking about low voter turnout, and you were using words like apathy. We also need to be careful, because at the end of the day, you have to know what is the number that is registered, and always remember that election in our country is not compulsory. It is we can only persuade people. There are different reasons why people come out to vote. There are different reasons why some people don't even care about voting. So, and this one now is something that a lot of people are also having a call on as to whether people should contest for a position and then midway they go for another and then create a vacancy.
According to the INEC chairman now, the biggest challenge for the commission in the conduct of these elections is insecurity and incendiary comments by political actors. So it appears as if political actors have also not played according to the books and have been like a thorn in the flesh for INEC in the whole build-up to these elections.
Yes, so between me and you, that's the focus of my engagement, that we over-respect the politicians, the political parties, and we don't hold their feet on the fire.
So it's INEC.
80% of the challenge you have with election. And if you had taken time to study what is coming out from the courts, you will see that it is more about the misbehavior of the politicians than the conduct of the election itself. More of the misbehavior of the political class than the conduct of the election itself. Most of the calls that you have seen had to do with the shenanigans that happened internally in those political parties. And because we are not focused on that, the fall guy for us will be the one who has responsibility to make them behave well. But so if the INEC chairman is telling you that the biggest challenge is insecurity. So there are different kinds of insecurity. There is the real insecurity. There is the political insecurity. Okay? So if you dissect all of that, who is responsible for managing security and insecurity? The people we elected, who come through a
political parties, that also, who promised us that they would secure us. So if they don't secure us, they create work for me and you. It's not an INEC chairman's issue now. You live in Abuja. And so even if INEC chairman does not tell you that the biggest threat to the current thing for his staff, for the voter, is actually the fact that there's a psychological siege that has enveloped most parts of the country, in which people don't feel safe to not only go to vote, they can't also go to farms, they can't go to the river, they can't go to the general issues of. So the politicians have created that siege environment. During election, they can take advantage of it. But one thing that we need to underscore is that if in Surulere, where you have 100 and something thousand people, that's 160 so thousand people you're expecting to vote today, only 20 come out to vote, somebody will be declared a winner. And that person will represent Surulere federal constituency in the national. So whether you come out, so it's now not a system where they say majority carries the day.
No, it is majority carries the day. Majority in the sense
that come out to vote.
It is that majority carries the day. It's not majority in the house. It's not the majority.
Not the registered voters.
No, it's not the registered voters. It's not the one that is on, as we speak now, that is monitoring the election on Twitter, that is listening to us, that is that one who has taken the pains to go and queue up and exercise that franchise, and then can then make that demand that I elected or did not elect this representative. And that is what the conversations should always be about. Because many times we make people comfortable when we give them the impression that, because some of them say they are protesting. They are angry about how 2023 election went. They are angry about how the person who, all that your anger will not vitiate the fact that by midnight today, latest Sunday morning, a winner will be declared. And what history will record will be the number of people who came out and exercised their franchise. And that is important to constantly let our people know. That go out now. Yeah. This is the time to go out. Your voting, your PVC, is the power that you have to make a change. Incidentally, at least from the visuals that we have seen, is peaceful. So that you have no excuse, in terms of, maybe it is violent and all of that. Go out there, cast your vote. Democracy, this one that we are practicing, has come to stay.
Okay, let's get a live report from our correspondent in Plateau State, Sifon Essien. Hello, Sifon. Good morning. Sifon, good morning. Hi.
Good morning, Femi. Yeah, so far so good. It's been peaceful and calm in all the areas we've visited. Security has been top notch. The police have been leading other security forces to tighten security, enforcing the ban on movement at this hour. So far, it's been calm.
Well, Sifon, Plateau State is peculiar because before this election, we know the kind of news that has been coming out of Plateau State, the insecurity, the attacks in Mangu, Bokkos, Barking Ladi. How did all of these impact the election in terms of turnout and also the security arrangements provided to ensure a peaceful conduct of the election?
Well, largely we've seen a case of voter apathy. In many of the polling centers or units that we visited, even as up till 11, 12, many voters yet to turn up, unlike the one behind me where you have a good number of persons turning up to cast their ballot. In many other places, and the voters were not just there at the time we expected them to be there. In other words, the electoral officers were at the units waiting for the voters to turn up, and for many, voters were not turning up. In terms of security, it has been cool and calm, like the security agents would say. There's been no infraction coming from areas where could be described as volatile for now. Law enforcement agents are on their toes. The mandate is that they must maintain the law and ensure there is no infraction capable of undermining the process in Plateau State. And shortly I'll be bringing one of the stakeholders here who's spoken extensively on the security situation. If you permit me now,
go ahead,
I'll bring in Dan Choji, and we're going to be talking about the security of Plateau State and where you are. How would you describe the efforts of law enforcement agency in managing security at this moment?
Seriously, at this moment, I will give credit to the security and law enforcement agencies. So far, it has been a very, very wonderful election. Very peaceful so far. We have not seen any noise anywhere so far. Everywhere, people are still queuing and voting. So far, there is a very good compliance.
Now, we also seen cases of the electoral officers showing up at their duties, but voters are not showing up as expected. Doesn't that worry you?
Well, it's a worrisome something, because actually people thought as usual that the electoral officers are coming as late as usual. But it is very surprising today that they came very early and they are already at the polling booths before even voters come around. I am a resident of Trelnyap, Congo, Russia. This is my neighboring community. I came round to see the situation at Bauchi Road and Angorogo particularly. So I give credit to INEC this time around for coming up, bringing the ad hoc staffs on time.
Now, one more question from me, back to security. There have been fears that certain areas are considered volatile, and managing those areas at this moment might be a daunting task for security forces. But so far, so good, it has been calm. What would you say has happened?
Well, I am even surprised at what is going on. Because, because we have a divide of the Christian communities where I come from. And then the Bauchi Road, Angorogo, where predominantly is a Muslim community. And so far, there is nothing like violence anywhere. So I'm even surprised because before today, we thought this election will bring or come up with so many issues. But by the look of things, of the truth, everywhere is very calm. And there is a movement. Like you can see, I'm a Christian and I'm at Bauchi Road, Angorogo area. I came to see, to observe what is going on. And it has been so peaceful. Nobody attacked me or anything. It is a very peaceful election. And I can see other Christians passing by through Bauchi Road. I give kudos to the indigents of Jos North local government today, because we have seen a very, very different thing entirely. It has been very peaceful, even though there is a low turnout, voter apathy, so to say, just like your reporter have mentioned. But I believe with a little time, people will definitely come out, because we didn't expect that the INEC are coming as early as this. So I believe so many people thought there is a very large queue. That is why they are not on ground now. But I believe before the end of the day, people will come out and vote.
On that peaceful and positive note, coming from Plateau State, we expect that the situation will continue on that note. There have also been fears earlier of calls for boycotts by the Inter-Party Advisory Committee.
I was going to ask you that.
Of a particular party on that case. Well,
Advisory
Council, I beg your pardon.
I was going to speak on that, if you can hear me. Yeah, I was going to speak on that now, and that's asking parties to boycott the election because the People's Democratic Party was not included in the ballot. And that's because of a January 29 order from the Federal High Court removing the People's Democratic Party from that contest. And then there's been fake news around Jos Town, Jos North, where you are, asking people to boycott the process. Could it also be one of the reasons why it appears as if voters have not turned out as expected?
Yet we would say it's still too early to conclude. There's been that call for boycott, but we've equally seen persons come out and against all odds to make their votes count at this moment. So it may not be safe to say the voter apathy or the low turnout is as a reason of the boycott. We also gather from sources that even those who called for boycott have equally now thrown their weight behind certain political interests at the moment. But so far, so good. The process is going on smoothly, devoid of violence against fears.
Well, Sifon, the person you spoke with earlier was talking about that particular place. It appears as if it's one of the volatile areas in Jos North. Am I correct? And what's the mood around there? How the people around there, how do they feel? Is there a sense of safety, or is there still tension? What can you sense?
Well, there's no air of tension or fear in this location at the moment. This place is actually very critical considering the political climate of the state and the security, calculations in certain quarters, along religious lines. This is considered predominantly a Muslim area, but we have persons who are non-Muslims coming here to vote. So we have seen a case of tolerance and understanding, and persons expressing their commitment to the success of the entire process and peace in Plateau State.
Well, beyond this area where elections are holding, what's the general security in Jos or in Plateau State now? You've also moved around and seen major roads and all of that. What are you seeing in terms of security arrangement to also ensure that these attackers do not take advantage of this election to launch another attack in some of these rural communities that have been ravaged lately?
In terms of physical security, we've seen massive deployment of law enforcement agents led by the police and the Nigerian army, with all of their equipment on strategic location or at strategic locations in the metropolis and outside of the metropolis, as far as Barakin Ladi, in places that would have been considered volatile. And law enforcement agents who engaged with them have, stuck to the rules of engagement. This is a civil exercise. So they've been as civil as possible in managing, number one, movement, and number two, the process, talking about the broadcasts or the voting at the various centers. So the physical presence of law enforcement agents, to an extent, many have said, is serving as a deterrent for anyone who might want to foment trouble. We also understand that there are other law enforcement agents undercover in Mufti, distributed in all the areas where this exercise is taking place. So far, so good. It's been peaceful. They've been able to manage the situation. There has been no appeal to violence, no breakdown of law and order.
Well, Sifon, you also the security and defense correspondent. You have extensively covered or reported conflicts in Nigeria and how security agencies are working to quell and forestall a reoccurrence of such in parts of the country. How is the special operations by the police doing in restoring peace and calm to the troubled areas in Plateau State?
Well, we gather that the law enforcement agents, especially like the Special Intervention Squad, coming all the way from Abuja to other parts, and the special arrangements also made in Plateau State have, taken the step or investigation is not higher. In places like where violence had been recorded in the past 2 weeks, or renewed violence, Mango and boycots and the likes, so far so good. They've been able to manage the situation. While more arrests, we get that more arrests have been made, and the police is going to, announce that shortly after now, and that is leading to the arrest of more persons in connection with violence, as we've seen in this state. So far, we believe that has served as an example or as an element of deterrent for those who may want to start another round of violence in the state or engage in any activity capable of undermining the peace.
Well, indeed, Sifon said, thank you so much for your time and the brilliant reporting you're doing there in Plateau State. We'll join you again shortly to get live updates from another location that you might be at that time. Thanks, Sifon, and stay safe. Well, Ezenwagu, moving on now. Before Sifon joined us with that live reporting from Plateau State, we were also having our own conversation talking about the multi-stakeholder and engagement in supporting the Electoral Commission to conduct these elections we're seeing. But, looking at now the court-ordered rerun, you're talking about the attitude of the political actors, which seem to be a bigger problem. And some people would say, well, it still comes back to INEC because they are supposed to, in their oversight, supervise the activities of the political parties, because we still have situations where political parties will conduct parallel elections, primary elections, and one court will recognize this election, another court will recognize another one. And it also becomes confusing for INEC to know which one to recognize. So it also seems like INEC itself is not performing its oversight properly.
Well, I don't work for INEC, but the point that is important to make is that the politicians go to the courts to get both real and black market court orders, okay, and then present all of that to INEC, and then INEC is now, in your words, confused now as to which, sometimes courts of same jurisdiction giving those orders, and then you are left. So where is INEC's problem there now? So the thing is that INEC will wait until the superior court makes a call. And sometimes some of these issues get up to Supreme Court. You understand? So if it's just like issues of issuing of certificate of return. There are places where INEC has issued certificate of return and the superior court says withdraw, and then they go and withdraw, and then the Supreme Court says return. So INEC is a creation of the law. So it has responsibility to obey the law. And sometimes when it obeys the law, because election is a competitive enterprise, those who fall on the different divides will have their arguments as to, the behavior of the electoral management body. But having said that, we need to strengthen the Department of Political Party Monitoring to be able to make a call. Listen, we have conducted 2023 elections. The political parties have not given anyone the statement of account as required by law. How the monies they received for 2023 election, how it was expended, that has not happened.
And the part of the political parties.
The political parties have a responsibility to give us an account of the resources they received for the 2023 election, according to the law. So, but that's not the conversation. We are not going to hold them to that. So that department needs to be strengthened to be able to do that work. Oftentimes they also go and monitor this what do you call them, party primaries. But the law does not give them the power. All that they can do is what we observers do. I went there, I saw, I write a report. What you do with the report is not anybody's. Sometimes the reports can be ignored. Sometimes the court can even recognize the one that they did not. So the challenge for us is that in further conversations about deepening democracy and our electoral process, we have to centralize the activities of the political parties and make them responsible. As we speak now, and the IPAC, for instance, that you talked about, you referred to in Plateau State, their national body had an election, 19 of them. 19 people, only 19 people voting in an election could not elect a chairman for themselves. The so-called organization responsible for political, as we speak now, they are in court. And they are the ones who provide the machine for our leadership recruitment process. It is from there that we draw. Okay? In Plateau, you are IPAC. Okay? One political party has an issue. You say, you call for a boycott. When election is a competition, the other political parties who
who have no issues in the election. You are telling them to boycott election because a political party.
We are even hearing that, well, some of those asked to boycott have also
No, that's not even it.
boycott.
IPAC is not on the ballot. There is no IPAC on the ballot. You have political parties on the ballot. So you cannot tell a political party that wants to participate in an election that it should not participate because your name is IPAC. So it's because we are not holding, and now they have even shifted grounds again to go, and that tells you the nature of the political class that we are relating with. One that you are not even sure whether they are interested in reforms, whether they are interested in change, whether they are interested in even the democracy itself.
All right, then. Well, let me quickly tell. Joining us now is Solomon Adoga from the Transition Monitoring Group, another civil society organization involved in the advocacy for electoral reforms in Nigeria. Thank you for joining us, Solomon. Well, I've been having a quite interesting conversation here with Ezenwago, talking about the whole electoral process, the role of the electoral umpire, but he is saying that we should begin to shift the conversation or our focus from the electoral umpire, because it's a multi-stakeholder engagement or responsibility. There are other institutions, including the political parties, the political actors, whose role is also quite significant. But it appears as if these political actors, according to even the INEC chairman, are some of the are the major problems in the whole electoral process, because INEC chairman says the biggest challenge is insecurity in some parts of the country and incendiary comments by political actors. How big a problem is this that we have in our electoral space?
Well, I agree with him completely. So over time, we've centered our focus, largely on the EMBs, because, of course, as government institution is largely easier to interact with them, point fingers at them, see what the problems are with them, and associate with those problems generally. So we've always had that leverage to engage, easily with the election management bodies, but that is not the same for the political parties as institutions, and sadly so, because they are also a necessity in the electoral process. We are not a system where individual candidature is allowed under the law. Independent candidature is allowed under the law. So the political parties are that machinery which we must drive through to produce leaders, and it becomes very necessary that we must also now begin to shift the attention, gravitate some of this energy that will focus so much on the EMBs to the political parties, and try to put some sanity in those institutions. What we've seen largely is that the political parties in Nigeria are largely an all-comer affair, and that's a problem, because what we've seen is people who do not have any other interest but to play politics at all costs, because without politics they are nothing. We've seen politicians who have no enterprise outside of politics, and such people will play very bitter politics, very, very violent politics, and all of those are having a telling on our electoral and processes right now. So it's important. I agree completely with the senior comrade Ezenwa that we need to gravitate towards the political parties, and it's not like those efforts have not been made, especially from the civil society.
Have there been resistance?
Yes,
on the part of
yes.
the political
So
parties?
exactly, it's not an easy advocacy to do at all. We've attempted some of those advocacy, we've attempted some of those campaigns, and we still do them, and we have to do them because it's a mandate for us to try to put some sanity into those institutions. But largely, it's easily agreeable that they are a major problem in our electoral process.
All right, then I'll come back to you. Ezenwago, there's now this growing conversation about a need to, review or amend the Electoral Act as we have it. It's already growing. That conversation is already coming up in the House of Representatives. We also had the Speaker, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, when he was talking about the court-ordered rerun elections that had to take out about 17 members of the Federal House of Representatives. He didn't find that funny, and he says, well, I think it's time we go back and look at our Electoral Act. Is there a need for that?
Femi, I am very careful, and I've been very careful in discussing electoral reforms because it's central. Improvement in processes is a constant, but we cannot make an industry out of it. We should not make an industry out of electoral reform. What do I mean? By February 25th of 2023, the Electoral Act was only 1 year old. Its birthday was on that 25th. And then we tested it out in the elections. There are challenges. So what do we do? What we can do is to look at observer reports, for instance, TMG, Yaga, Situation Room. Many organizations have produced reports about the 2023. INEC will conduct an audit. There is the Justice Ways Electoral Committee report. There is the Nnamani report. There is the Lemu report. There are the 2014 National Conference report. You can empower the House Committee, Senate Committee on electoral whatever, on INEC and the rest of them. You can empower them to review these documents and tease out new issues. What are those new issues? For instance, cross-carpeting. You don't need to vote now 10 billion, 15 billion. That is the run of the mill in the and luckily you report them every year. The deputy, what do you call it?
Please, just a minute. Hold your thoughts. We have Bamidele Ajayi. He's joining us from Enugu State, and he has with him the resident electoral commissioner in that state. Hi, Bamidele. How is Enugu today? Bamidele, can you hear me?
Enugu is peaceful as ever. Enugu election is peaceful as ever. The exercise was calm in the morning, but concerns about the Robinson Street police and Uwane has been an issue that people are expecting when will election commence here. Virtually, there are every presence of security operatives there, and even the electors are out there to cast their ballot. But there were issues that there were alleged missing results, that which the election commission was here, and it's even here to correct the issue that even if there's a missing sheet that is here to at least replace it in accordance with the Electoral Act. Which means is the let him speak more on what about the missing result sheet and what the rest will plan to do. Yes, sir. There's an issue about missing result sheet that people are saying that the election should not continue. And you spoke to us earlier that there have been measures to correct that. Please speak on it.
Please, in one, Robinson Street, to be precisely, I got information that the political party agents blocked INEC staff that the election will not hold as a result of them to show all the electoral material in line with Electoral Act. So when I had that information, I quickly rushed to the polling the ward Arue. So when I get in here, in line with the Electoral Act, I call the EO and the agents, all the political parties, and address them that there is a solution. If the hoodlums or whoever capture away any electoral material before the election commence, it's the duty and responsibility of INEC to redo a replacement. So once the replacement is issued, the voters will commence. So here now, I have issued them replacement sheets in line with the Electoral Act. So it's of them to commence voting proper.
Hi, Bamidele.
I'm here.
Bamidele, can you hear me?
What are you telling the electorate?
Bamidele, can you hear me?
The people of Enugu, particularly this Aru
Yeah, please, I want to know who are you speaking with? Is he the resident electoral commissioner? Let's know who are you speaking with? Is that the resident electoral commissioner?
This is the resident electoral commissioner for Enugu State, Dr. Chukwuemeka Chukwu.
Dr. Chukwuemeka Chukwu, resident electoral commissioner.
Is on his part. He says.
Go ahead, let's listen to him. I just wanted to properly identify the person speaking. Go ahead, let's hear him.
So what are you telling?
Enugu, the party agent, there is no cause for alarm. I'm your resident electoral commissioner. I know the law. I know what is stand by the law. Hence, I'm here. You come out and cast your vote. Within here, the vote is going to start. I've informed the party agents and the ad hoc staff. Let them set their cubicle and take the normal voting. The returning seat is here with the electoral officer in charge of Enugu South. So once the election concludes, they will collect the results and queue in into the result replacement sheet and upload the same so that all the political parties will be here, witness all the process before they conclude today's exercise.
It is obvious that we are starting beyond schedule. Do you intend to extend the
Yes. Because of the time and some of this we witness here, if the people, the electorate, who are to cast their votes, if they didn't meet up with the time because of this irregularity that just happened here, we assure them they have to vote till every last person on a queue, on a line, will vote today.
We just heard from the resident electoral commissioner for Enugu State. He's assuring the eligible voters to come out and cast their vote, that the fear about alleged missing results has been taken care of. I want to brush our notice that in this polling unit, we have 8 polling units and a ward in Enugu South 1 that will have about 4,613 eligible voters that will cast their vote here. In Enugu North, that of Udenu and Igweze North, they'll be having 155 polling units where election will take place at 25 RA, that's the word. That they are assuring themselves also that these 2 major state and federal of rep election will go on in that, and it will be each free. The mild delay that they experience here, according to the resident electoral commission side, it will be taken care of. That is assuring that the election will be peaceful without rancor or violence.
All right then, Bamidele Ajayi reporting from Enugu State. Thank you for your time. We'll still come back to you later on in the bulletin to talk more about the issues happening there in Enugu State and how the electorate are allowed to exercise their franchise. Thanks, Bamidele. Well, missing result sheets in Enugu State and political agents hindering INEC staff from carrying out their duty. Here we go again. But we'll take a quick break, and when we return, I will come back to the studio to continue my conversation with Solomon Adoga of the Transition Monitoring Group and Ezenwa Onwagu, where we'll discuss all of these issues from what we're having in Enugu State to other sundry electoral matters. Stay with us.
But let me ask the question of what does this say to you as to the seriousness of these threats?
I have not done anything to contravene the provision of the law in this country. You cannot say you are better than me.
The law is clear as to what happens when you conclude your 35th year in service.
My name is Yuri Kolari. We'll see you tomorrow, God willing. Bye-bye for now.
Welcome back to TVC News coverage of the by-election and the court-ordered rerun elections across the country. And I still have my guests in the studio. Well, before we went to Bamidele Ajayi in Enugu State, we're talking about electoral reforms and how you like to be careful on that subject because it appears as if some people with certain interests are the ones pushing for electoral reforms. Let me let you conclude your thought on that, and then I'll hear from you before we go. Before we speak on what is going on in Enugu State.
So, just to be clear, I'm saying that you keep improving your processes, but you do not build an industrial complex of corruption around it. I do not think that we need to vote 20 billion, 10 billion. To do electoral reforms when the law that we have just passed has not even been tested. Okay? So I'm saying there are issues that have fallen out from our experiences in the last election and all the other reports that we have. We can contemporize the issues that were raised in those results. Independent INEC, truly independent INEC, where appointment of resident electoral commissioners and the national chairman can be organized by a different group other than the president, the way we have seen it. Because in our own view as civil society, it erodes on the independence of, the INEC. We are seeing issues of cross-carpeting. We are issuing issues of waiver by the political parties, where even presidential candidates of political parties may not even have spent 6 months in the political party and they become presidential candidates. We've seen somebody elected by the people just in the middle of nowhere, just decides that he is no longer going to be in that party. And that for me is an insult to the choice of the people and the parties that is. So we must talk about those. But I'm only saying that we need to take it away from the web that has been built around it, that every legislative year we must have the Senate, Deputy President, Speaker, and the plethora of members at the zonal hearings. The issues they are just there now. Let's take it on. Let those two committees sit down, look at those issues, bring relevant stakeholders, and then you can then get a law around that. So that for me is what the issue is.
All right, well, Solomon, electoral reforms, to be or not to be?
Oh, well, the question of reforms, and we want to ask ourselves, what do we want to reform that we've not been speaking about? What is the new thing that is unknown to us? Whether it's the fact that we need to enforce more political party financing, campaign financing, and the transparency and accountability around it. It's nothing new to us. We've been talking about that. It's also come out from the 2023 election till date. We don't have accountability around those. Even Comrade Ezinwa has made mention of that just this afternoon. Whether it is the whole transparency around party primaries and all of that.
How about concluding election petition cases before those elected officials are sworn in?
On that, right? On that, I think it's a simple thing that we need to all agree on. But then it's not a question of going on merry rounds around the issue. It's a very straightforward issue from where I see it, right? So elections are about the people, getting the people to make their choices, right? So everything that builds up to the point that the people get to make their decisions are very important, right? But any problem associated with that stage of the process must be resolved before you get the people to go to ballot, right? Because after bringing the people to cast their votes and then having 4 people sit on a bench to decide that, okay, yes, you may have legally voted for this candidate, but this candidate in the build-up had a fault, and so because of that, your choice no longer matters. It's like a slap on millions of people who would have voted for that candidate. So we need to understand this. What are pre-election matters to end before the election, right? So that after the election, whatever we are dealing with will be around issues of the credibility, transparency of the election itself.
Not how the candidates
not how the
emerged,
candidates
how they became
emerged.
flag bearers.
Exactly. Because all of that has to be dealt with before the candidates get to meet with the people.
All right, I get your point, but let's get Lupe Asom, our correspondent in Kaduna State. He's joining us now live to give us the situation report at a polling unit in Kaduna State. Hi, Lupe.
Good afternoon, Femi.
Good afternoon. Where exactly in Kaduna? Where exactly are you in Kaduna State, and what's going on there? What's the situation?
Well, yes, I'm in Kaduna South local government area where the elections are taking place in 5 polling units in Makera constituency. Remember that on the 28th of November, the appeal court ordered a rerun and nullified the election of the Speaker of the Kaduna State House of Assembly, talking Mr. Liman. So we're here now at Makera constituency. This is polling unit 05 in Banawa local government where this election is taking place. This polling unit has a voter capacity of 750 voters. We also visited polling unit 009 along the Market Road in Banawa State where they also have a voter capacity of over 750. So for now, the process has been peaceful so far. I spoke to agents of political parties who are participating in this election. They all commended the process. They said voting materials arrived early. And I must tell you, the process began as early as 8 a.m. And I must tell you, the turnout has been massive. We also have a substantial deployment of security operatives who are on ground to keep the peace, talking men of the Nigerian Army, the police, even the local vigilante and the Kaduna State Vigilante Service. So the process has been peaceful so far. And this election is taking place in 7 local governments in Kaduna State. In Chikun local government area, you recall that a lawmaker there died. The lawmaker who won the election in that constituency, he died 3 days after he was inaugurated as a state lawmaker. So that also gave rise to the need for an election in that place. And as we're talking at the moment, I've spoken to people in that place. The elections are going smooth so far. Materials arrived early, and things are just okay at the moment.
Well, Lupe, look back to your right. Is that an operative of the EFCC I see there with a red jacket? To your left? Okay, that will be to your left. No, to your left. Is that an operative of the EFCC?
No. He's not actually. No, he's not an operative of the EFCC. He's a member of the press, and he's just wearing the jacket of his organization, of his media organization.
Okay,
but I must tell you, security operatives are on ground. I just told.
Okay, well, I was going to ask if we have anti-graft agencies also on ground monitoring to ensure that we do not have issues of vote buying and other kind of malpractice associated with elections. Have you seen any of such?
We have intelligence agencies on ground. I've seen operatives of the DSS. But of course, some of these operatives, because of how sensitive their jobs are, they may be moving about in mufti, trying to fish out these people. So I must tell you that we have security operatives, including intelligence agencies on ground, who are going about trying to make sure the place is safe. I just saw a truck of the Nigerian Army personnel arrive. They have positioned their men in very, very key areas, flashpoints in the state, to ensure that the process is smooth. So I think operatives of anti-graft agencies and other intelligence agencies are, of course, on ground to ensure that guidelines are followed and that the elections are conducted, the elections are free and fair.
Well, Lupe, Kaduna State is also one of the states that has its own peculiar security challenges with banditry, kidnapping for ransom, and some other forms of crime. This particular place you are, is it one of those volatile areas?
No, I'm in Barnawa. Barnawa is in Kaduna South local government. It's actually one of the key places within the town. So for this particular place, we've not had, we don't have a record of violence or all of that. All we have is maybe youths, small talk groups. But of course, this place has actually been quiet. Most of the insecurity we record are in places that are a little bit outskirts of the town. But as I'm talking to you, this place is in the main part of the town. It's part of Kaduna Metropolis. Yes, talking Igabi, talking Giwa, talking Briningwari, but this is Kaduna South. It is located in the metropolis. So
do we have elections holding in those places?
Or violence in areas like this.
Do we have elections holding in those places?
No, we don't have elections. Are not holding in Giwa or elections are not holding in Briningwari, but we have elections holding in Chiku. Of course, I told you the lawmaker who died, and then it gave rise to that election in that place. But it's not where the elections are taking place. Are not actually the outskirts of the town. So the place is relatively safe for now, and we have not had reports of any breakdown of law and order in any of these places for now.
So do you think the security situation now in Chikum, where you said a lawmaker died, and that's why we're having a by-election there, do you think the security situation in that particular local government may impact one way or the other the electoral process in terms of maybe voter turnout and the confidence of the people to come out and feel safe to cast their votes?
Just as you know, the Inspector General of Police made massive deployments across states where these elections are taking place, and Kaduna is no exception. Yesterday, the Commissioner of Police in Kaduna State warned that anyone who would think of trying to disrupt the election process, that they would react and they would actually bring those people to justice. So I must tell you, massive deployments have been made. I came here this morning to see trucks of personnel of the Nigerian Army, personnel of the police, the DSS. They are on ground to ensure the process is smooth. And I must also commend the residents. They have tried their best to conduct themselves in a very orderly manner. So it is not, I don't think there's an exception to what is happening in Chukwu. Of course, it is a flashpoint. So troops were deployed to that place. Operatives of the Nigerian police were deployed to that place. And as at this moment, as we speak, no report has been received of a breakdown of law and order in Chukwu local government. So the expectation is that the process will be smooth, and personnel have been deployed to that place to ensure that the whole process is smooth and it is hitch-free. So for now, you can take my word that security have been deployed to that place and there's relative calm across the polity.
I'll definitely take your word, Lupe. Thank you so much, Lupe. I have some reporting from Kaduna South local government. Well, go ahead and do your thing, Lupe. Well, let's also cross over to Lagos State, where Sarah Ayeku is standing by in Surulere. Hi, Sarah.
Of course, Femi, it's a beautiful day in Surulere. Just around us, you see that there is a bit of restriction around this area. I'm at Ogunlano Drive, just by Itire in Surulere, one of the places where the wards, some wards, I'm talking about the 258 wards that we're expecting elections to hold today, you can see that there are two wards, there are two polling units over here, polling unit 044 over here, and what we've seen so far is we've seen voters come in, since voting and accreditation is simultaneous, is at the same time we've seen voters coming, be accredited and then vote at the same time. We've also seen a flurry of activities. We saw earlier some EFCC officials going around and doing their own job by monitoring if there is some sort of vote buying at these polling units. So we're expecting to see about 121,000 voters go to the polls today to elect and fill the seat of the Surulere 1 federal constituency.
So how has it been? Has it been a busy time for the electoral officers around there? Because from what I see behind you, it appears those white chairs are empty.
Of course, it looks really empty, particularly if you go to some particular polling units. But as at the time election starts, voting started by at about 8:30 a.m. this morning, we saw a number of voters flock to the various polling units. But now this is a little over 12 o'clock, and so you know that the activities would have reduced. This is just one constituency we're talking about. No matter how strategic Surulere is to Lagos, we would definitely see these low numbers at various polling units. But earlier we spoke with the Chief of Staff, which is Femi Gbajabiamila, who is the man that vacated the seat and the reason why we're having this election today. He had said that the reason why we're seeing some low numbers is because people will come out in year ones and year twos to vote, because the election is now pretty seamless. If you can get accredited in your various polling unit and just vote simultaneously, you're good to go. You can just go home and wait for INEC officials to conclude the event by 2 p.m. and then read the results later on. So we're expecting, it's normal to see this kind of number in these polling units, particularly empty chairs, and you see that INEC ad hoc staff are waiting, for voters to come out till the 2 p.m. End time. And so what we're seeing also is that security operatives have flocked around all of the polling units. That is 258 polling units. That's in all of the 6 wards rather, that are in Surulere 1 federal constituency. And when I spoke with the police public relations officer earlier, he said that for this election they deployed 6,000 security personnel. So I'm talking from all of the other paramilitary agencies. So they deployed 6,000 of them to these various polling units. That's 258 polling units that are up for this election.
Well, Sarah, Surulere is one of the busy business and residential districts on the mainland of Lagos State. When I spoke with Bimbo Agbebi earlier, she talked about a non-compliance with the restrictions imposed by the state police, by the police command in Lagos State. That's a vehicular restriction. But you are saying that that restriction is being enforced right there where you are. How has it impacted the socio-economic activity around?
So for this particular area, where you'd see a lot of activities, particularly vehicular activities, are those areas where the police had said that if you take through Funshaw Williams, you have free passage. But if you're going into the inner roads, that's where you see the restriction of movement. So from this street now, you see that a lot of people are trekking down to the main bus stops just to get a bus out to their destinations. You see that some roads have been barricaded, particularly the inner roads where elections are holding. You see that the streets are empty. People are trekking, walking the distance to their homes. And you see that the police have barricaded this road. So you can't even gain access to this road. And some other roads, some other inner roads also have been barricaded by the police. But most of the roads where you see a flurry of activities, particularly economic activities and vehicular movement, are those roads where the police had said that there is free passage because they are adjoining streets to the major roads in Surulere. And so what we've seen is that this number, the flurry of activities that we're seeing around are just some persons selling food, the food vendors, those ones really are out on the streets. But for most of the business areas, you do not see the stores being open, but it's just a few food vendors that we see around this area. That's Ogunlano Drive here in Surulere.
Well, for the areas where there are no restrictions on vehicular movement, what's the traffic situation like? Lagos is known for traffic congestion. Has this restriction caused a tailback in other parts of Surulere and indeed the mainland?
All right, let me just put this down a bit so that I can use my hands properly. So what we see in the major areas, that's the busy areas in Surulere, is that, a lot of persons I talked about today, people were scared that the whole of Lagos would be shut down just because one federal constituency was going to be doing election. But thankfully, the police had cleared that area to say that it's just these inner roads where elections are holding would experience that restriction of movement. And that's what we're seeing play out in some of these inner roads, particularly if you go to the stadium area. The traffic, people are not allowed into Surulere, so you can still go through the stadium area to access the other areas on the mainland. So it's pretty free for those who, I'm very sure Lagosians would definitely avoid areas where they know they'll find blocks, police blocks at these areas. So what we're seeing so far is that the voters that we spoke with earlier had also said that the election for them is peaceful and smooth. And of course, the resident electoral commissioner had said that they are ready and they are hoping that voters will come out in their numbers to vote. We see that some voters are just going to some polling units now. So people are just taking their time because they know INEC officials will be here until 2 p.m. when it's close time.
All right, then, Sarah Ayeku, thank you so much for your time. We'll come back to you to get further updates. Well, back to the studio now. I still have Ezewagu and Solomon Adoga. Earlier, we spoke with our correspondent in Enugu State, and he talked about political party agents obstructing INEC officials from doing their job. The usual culprits are at it again.
No, I think in that particular case, if they are party agents, then they have responsibility to call attention to infractions. But they have no right to interfere with the process, but they can call attention.
Okay, what the resident electoral commission
the first challenge is some of these kind of things that we hear diminish us as a people. That you come to conduct elections and result sheets are missing. And then you are not even talking about that. You are just promising people that election will go ahead and all that. You are not telling us what happened. Why should? Who is responsible? So we can't, in this particular, the agents are doing what they are expected to do. Because if they do that all through the gamut of the process, we will not have some of the challenges. That the truth is that it is because they abandon their responsibility as party agents. That's why you see some of the shenanigans that. So these ones are vigilant and have been able to call attention, and there has been a remedy.
Okay, but let's try and troubleshoot now. Let's do an analysis. Where could these result sheets have gone? Where could they have gone missing?
That's what I'm saying. We saw that in Kogi, and as we speak. I know the audit has not come out, but we need to be. I've been talking about consequence and sanctions because that is what is absent. If you saw the resident elector, he has papered over that. He's now talking about the fact that the election will continue, and he knows the law. What the law, doesn't it tell you that if it is a presiding officer, if it's a supervisor, if it is the electoral officer, we need to be able to, and it is also our responsibility as civil society and the media to put a searchlight in that particular place to find out what happened, because we are always moving on, and that's for me what the challenge is. We hear it, we know that there's an infraction, but immediately all of this is done, we wait for the next election. But somebody stole, somebody removed result sheets that is meant for a particular polling unit, and there is a place in the law. So the first person that should be questioned is the electoral officer, who is in charge of that. Who is in charge of the local government itself? Because he is responsible for distribution of those materials. Then when you hold him, he then holds the supervisor who is in charge of the particular registration area. And then now we are not having a lot of ad hoc staff involved in this process. So many of the people who are working in it are actually INEC staff. So we can pin down where all of this
is coming. Well, it's not rocket science. Well, we'll take another short break and we'll return to continue our conversations around the by-elections and court-ordered rerun elections happening across the country. And we also have our correspondents on standby to give us live updates. We'll be back after the break.
But let me ask the question of what does this say to you as to the seriousness of these threats?
Because I have not done anything to contravene the provision of the law in this country, you cannot say you are better than me.
The law is clear as to what happens when you conclude your 35th year in service.
My name is Yori Kolari. We'll see you tomorrow, God willing. Bye-bye for now.
Welcome back to TVC News coverage of the by-elections and court-ordered rerun elections across the country. Well, Solomon, we're talking about the situation in Enugu State. It appears as if the resident electoral commissioner, who should be asking some questions and even providing answers to certain questions, is papering over the cracks.
If you reflect back to Kogi, you remember that the same thing happened with, I think, the wreck over there when the issue of pre-written result sheets, happened. And in that occasion, the REC blatantly called civil society, who exposed that particular situation as not an election management body and lacking whatever credibility to issue such statement. And unfortunately, here in Enugu again, the REC has also just watered down the situation. But we must recognize the efforts of the party agents, especially learning from Kogi State. So it will beat my imagination if, coming off that recently concluded elections in Kogi and the situation that arose from it, that if you are going into any elections at this point, that party agents will just fold their hands without trying to do some observation of the materials. So it's kudos to those agents that they took note, learned their lessons, and did exactly what is expected of them to do. But like Ezima said, we must not allow that to just step over us. It's a situation that must be looked into, especially for those critical questions that you asked for answers to be provided. Why are those result sheets missing, and at what point did they get missing, so that we can truly get to punish culprits of this kind of situations. I mean, to set examples.
Also, political parties are given the opportunity to inspect these sensitive materials and also monitor the whole distribution process to ensure that result sheets meant for a particular polling unit are taken to that polling unit, and local government or reservation areas as the case may be. Could it also be where that infraction happened?
I've also had the privilege to observe, transfer of election materials, from Abuja here to the states. So there's a lot that could happen from that transition period, So I don't know if everything,
it's possible.
It's possible. It's possible. I mean, there are humans, interfacing with that transition period. So with human interference, anything can actually happen. So I mean, it also begs the question for us to look into trying to avoid human interference as much as possible with our processes. For now, at the development stage of our elections, there are a lot of human involvement needed, and that's recognizable. But as time goes on, it's important for us to try to withdraw some of those human interfaces as much as possible. So it's difficult. There are many points that these withdrawals of materials could have happened actually.
Wherever they happen, somebody has a responsibility. The people who, whether by commission or omission, gets those things out, the political parties who are beneficiaries of the votes have a responsibility to keep an eye. And where they don't is where you have all this, hula baloo that eventually happens. Where you don't see them do that, oftentimes there are compromises. Those compromises are the reason why those things pass. Where there is no compromise, it is the responsibility of a party agent to call attention, because the law says that you have to show him what you are. That's why election starts at a particular time. Yeah. When you come, opening of the polls, there are rituals for opening of the polls. Part of those rituals is to show what you came with. Yeah. I came with one so and so number of ballot boxes. These are the result sheets. If a party agent is there, who knows who is truly a party agent and not one that has transactional relationship, is to say, okay, we are told you are going to have 10. Why are we having 9? And then you have to answer him. You just have to provide that answer. And so that's what I'm saying. And you see, as part of the process, the things that Femi, that we need to be calling attention to is that these parties have to be responsible. You see, 2023, all the noise that you had about IREF was simply the political parties not doing their bit. Because IREF is INEC's thing that they set up for themselves. They didn't set it up for you. They only set it up for themselves and say, you can follow our process in this place. It does not take away the responsibility of your agent to take his form EC8A. Party Eze, Party Solomon, Party Femi. You are my representative. Election has held in a polling unit. Form EC88A has been given to you. What do? You send to me. So I have my result from the polling unit where you participated. So you can create your IREF. And the law does not stop you from creating your IREF. So, but what did we do? All of us outsourced that responsibility away, and we left the indolence, the laziness of the political parties in not being able to provide a PVT for us, a parallel vote tabulation that we can follow through their agents on the ground. It is on the basis of that we can make comparisons with what INEC is said.
Someone once asked a question, and it is, how are these party agents recruited? How well, I know it's the responsibility of the political parties, but what kind of orientation do they have? Because in some cases, these party agents are what some people want to refer to as political thugs, who also feel that being nominated or appointed to be party agents is some kind of settlement. They do not have the basic orientation needed to conduct themselves within that voting process, and then become an obstacle or obstruct the whole political process, especially when it appears as if, from what they can see, the voting is not going their party's way.
So, Femi, I can't apologize for their lack of responsibility, and that is what we do often. You see, election is a serious business, especially this kind of elections, in the kind of environment where we are. The first thing that you need to do is to first ask yourself whether the parties have members. So for you to be an agent of a party, you first have to be a member of that political party. But what is our experience? Our experience, by the fluidity, by the nature of the fluidity of movement from one party to the other, people belong to 3 political or 4 political parties. One human being can claim to be there are homes you go to, you see PDP t-shirt, see APC t-shirt, see SDP t-shirt in one house. Yeah. Because the same person attends all political rallies. In fact, there was one in Nasarawa that was so laughable. The person who did party agent for a particular political party in in the presidential was doing for another political party in the governorship. I'm not saying what I was told. I saw the ad. I said,
it happens in
so it takes us to the place. There has to be training. The party agent has to understand what the rules of the game is, with which he's going to go and be your agent. If he does not understand it, he's a conscript. He's not a trained soldier. And there's a difference between a trained soldier and a conscript. Somebody you just catch on the road and give a gun. And somebody who has gone through training, you understand? So the point is that the politicians are not investing in so what do they do? In most cases, they don't have agents in the polling units. So they rely on what Femi analyst said in Enugu. What TVC said in Yola, not what your agent told you. And the most reliable source of information should be coming from your agent, not from external, extraneous sources. So that education is also civic education needs to happen, and I'm always happy that TVC creates this kind of opportunity. It's not just about election analysis. Is about using the platform also for civic political education. That parties must train. You see, the judgments have come. Nobody will take time to do a study and say, what are the critical issues that this the judiciary is useless. Judiciary. But go and study what they are things. Are there lessons that we can take away from those things with which we can improve our processes? Is there behaviors, misbehavior of INEC, the political parties, the security agents that we can glean from those judgments and then use it as advocacy for? But we're going to pass all of that, and then wait for 2027 or 2026, and then we build up again.
Well, elections will take place in senatorial districts, federal constituencies, and state constituencies. And it appears as if this is important because these people are more representative of the people at the grassroots compared to the presidential and the governorship, who appears to be a little bit up there. But from what we are hearing, I know it's still too early in the day now to draw conclusions, but it seems from what we are seeing in some areas, the people really are not coming out to vote. Could it also be that they do not really see these officials that are now up for election as their representatives?
I think it's as a result of a number of factors, actually. Yeah, that inclusive, but how informed are people that these elections are actually taking place is also another issue. I don't think that we've taken that effort to really educate people or enlighten people that there are by-elections within
it appears as if the most important elections in Nigeria are the presidential and the governorship.
The general
every
election,
other one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but of course, you saw in Kaduna the crowd behind your reporter. So where those efforts have been done, and it's credit to the political parties in those places, and it shows you the difference. Where political parties do the right thing, you see the results clearly. So political parties they have that first duty of mobilization. All right, I'm not supposed to mobilize people to go and vote for them. Right, they have that duty to mobilize the voters. So if you've done that rightly, right, the people will definitely turn out. So in places where we've seen that level of apathy, the political parties must ask themselves if they've actually done what is expected of them, and it's not also to throw the ball, completely at them. These isolated elections have that tendency to always, go unnoticed. Say, for instance, now, taking it back to TMG, for instance, now, and also maybe putting a nail on my own head. So what do we have commensurate effort to the type of mobilization, the type of deployments that we do for general elections, the big elections. No. Because of how TMG is constituted, we have that leverage of countrywide membership. So we are relying on the members in the states to draw reports. But do we have like a central data center where we are going to be analyzing, on the spot reports, for these elections? And we clearly do not have those. So what kind of importance are we giving to these elections are also, very important questions.
Well, for us at TVC, we have our correspondents across the country, and Godwin Agwam is joining us right now from Nasarawa State. Hi, Godwin. What's going on? Well, it appears there's a problem with Godwin's audio. Well, we'll fix that. We'll fix that audio and get back to Godwin Agwam. He's our correspondent in Nasarawa State. He's going to give us or bring us up to speed with the situation in the polling unit where he is and how voting is ongoing in Nasarawa State. Let's continue with our conversation here in the studio. You were talking about, deterrence, earlier on, because it seems we have seen infractions, we have seen election offenders, we have seen elections where the police or even the EFCC can announce that, we have arrested 10 people attempting to buy votes, we have arrested somebody who snatched a ballot box, but it ends there. We do not know what happens afterwards. And, at the next election, we'll still have a new set of people come up, try to truncate the whole process, they get arrested and all of that. But it seems there is no law in place that really deals with election offenders. Or maybe there's a law, but it's not
okay, Femi,
implemented.
The first thing is that we want to specialize crimes. We are specializing crimes and say crimes committed on the election on the Christmas Day.
It's different from the Christmas from the bandits crime,
or the one committed on Salah Day is Salah Day crime. No, what has happened is that those who have responsibility outsource that responsibility, and is the way we conduct ourselves in our country. So, if you beat up somebody during election, if you inflict bodily injury on somebody during election, is there a law that covers that in our laws, penal or criminal code? Do we have those? Is there something for battery? Is there something for assault? Is there something for arson? Is there something for... So those things are already there. So what do? Because of our political economy around every issue, we have to now have electoral offenses,
special courts for electoral offenders.
Commission.
So that is not necessary. We do not need a special court.
Just listen to me before you quote me. I know what I'm saying. You see, because those who have responsibility shirk that responsibility. So we are now in a place where we have made it almost inescapable for us to have a special place where people who commit crimes during election are treated. So, if we empower, what did we do with the law? We said INEC will prosecute crimes committed, and then the Constitution says the Police Act says the police will enforce all laws. So look at the Police Act, look at the Electoral Act. The Police Act says you, police, you have power to enforce all laws, including election laws. But we are not interested in that. What do we want now? The police will tell you that, INEC should prosecute. The legal department of INEC, go and check the budget for that department. That's what one senior advocate of Nigeria puts in his back pocket. That's the place you want to prosecute electoral offenders. We are jokers. We need to wake up to the responsibility and ask the police, the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security must not be only one that wakes up during election. It must be one that is also vested with the responsibility to catch people, sanction them, send them to prison, and then make example of them. If possible, you name and shame. So the psychology is deep, that the election is a bazaar. For every 90% of the people who are getting involved in it, it is money-making period. So we want to create, when you create the Electoral Offences Commission now, it becomes another center of power. Indeed. Okay? We are the commission, the commissioners, you know.
We'll now apply federal character.
So we need to, now, people are wanting to create that environment for that commission to be created. So you catch people now, you leave them, and you say the reason why they are not prosecuted is because there is no electoral offences commission. If we create that commission now, it is the silver bullet that solves all our problems. The one you caught,
what have you done to him?
How come that? Oh, you say, okay, the IPO, the person that caught him came from Maiduguri, so he cannot be coming from Maiduguri to come out. Why doesn't he? Is it not a case file? Hand over case file to somebody who is here. Let him study the case file and continue the prosecution. We hoist regimes of excuses. Those regimes of excuses that we continue to hoist are the things that keep us down. And then we do academic conversations about the need. INEC is pushing it because INEC, remember Femi, INEC is in the forefront of demanding for unbundling. This is the only organization who is saying the responsibility we have is too much for us. In the forefront, please take away political party registration. Take away political party problem from us. Let us face elections. Remove electoral offenses from us. Remove this from us. They are the ones who are demanding that by themselves. Saying, take it away. We don't want, this wahala is too much for us. But do you know what? This same INEC, immediately you conclude this thing now. Most of the state offices will be closed for another 2 years.
Until the next election. Well, gentlemen, because of we have run out of time, and I must thank you sincerely, Ezenwa Unwago, Chairman Partners for Electoral Reform, and also Solomon Adoga from the Transition Monitoring Group. Thank you so much for your time on the program. Well, that's it from our end here in Abuja on our coverage of the by-election and court-ordered rerun elections across the country. I'll now hand you over to our Lagos studio to continue with the rest of the coverage. I am Femi Akonde. Thank you, sirs. Sorry, we
Lagos is the most visited state in Africa as the 5th largest economy on the continent. Covering the state and its government is no mean feat, it's a busy beat. We go beyond the curtain of tapes to travel in far into the deep.
I want to thank the Lagos state government for the healthcare facility.
To bring stories.
Shall be ours.
We tell you stories that define our collective well-being as Lagosians. I'm Adedoja Salamadini. I live in Lagos, inside Lagos.
Akiwande Oluwole Soyinka was born on 13th July 1934 in Abeokuta, Nigeria, to parents Samuel and Grace Soyinka. His education began with the Christian lessons of his parents as well as the more traditional Yoruba spiritual customs taught to him by his grandfather. He had his preparatory university studies at Government College Ibadan in 1954, subsequently University College Ibadan, and he continued at the University of Leeds, earned a bachelor's degree in English literature. Soyinka's master's degree focused on projects combining his Yoruba culture with traditional British theatre traditions. He later returned to school in Nigeria to study African theatre, during which time he continued to produce poems and plays, one of which appeared on Nigerian television. Shortly after, he became the chief of the Cathedral of Drama at the University of Ibadan. Nigeria had only recently gained independence from Britain and political corruption was at a high. Soyinka's plays and poems became increasingly political and he began giving speeches protesting government corruption. He was accused of conspiring with the Biafra rebels. He was therefore arrested and imprisoned in 1967 for almost 2 years during the Civil War, but managed during his time to write numerous poems. He was finally released in 1969 after a brief period in France. He returned to his position at the university where he founded the magazine Black Orpheus. He left his position and Nigeria in 1971, wary of the political climate of the country. During this time, he published books of poetry and essays. His plays were collected and published, and newer plays were staged. In 1986, he was the first African to win the Nobel Prize in Literature for a wide cultural perspective and with poetic overtones fashioning the drama of existence. He dedicated his acceptance speech to Nelson Mandela and used the platform to criticize apartheid. Later that same year, Soyinka was awarded the Ajib Prize and in 1988 published his book Mandela's Earth and all the poems as well as art, dialogue, and outrage essays on literature.